we are going to talk midseason grades. We are roughly, well, a little bit more than halfway through the season. We're 7 games in at this point. Question before we get into this: if the question was posed to you in fall camp, one of these units would be top 10 total offense or total defense, and the other one would be way down there, like 50-ish range, I think. Would you have thought which way you would have thought that would have went? Probably the defense is top 10 and the offense is somewhere down there 50 or so, right? And it's the complete opposite this season. I don't think coming into the season anyone would have put any sort of money on that. I certainly wouldn't have. But yeah, quick thoughts on that.
Pretty crazy, man. Yeah, just not at all how we drew it up, but honestly, it's refreshing. It's a change of pace.
Yeah, it's nice to see the offense operate at a very high level. But what we're going to do here, Jordan, is we're going to go through the various position groups on the team, and we're going to give a midseason grade and give kind of our quick overarching thoughts on how the position groups have performed to this point in time in the season. And then maybe we'll give an offensive and defensive grade overall at the end, and then wrap it up with that. So starting off, I guess, on the offensive side of the ball, we will start with the wide receiver position. What's your grade for the wide receivers thus far, 7 games into this 2024 season?
I mean, I don't think there's another grade you can give it other than an A. I mean, I think this wide receiver room has been just about everything that you could have hoped. And really, I'd give it an A+ if it wasn't for the Georgia game. But I don't even think that was all their fault. You didn't really have all of your best guys playing when the game was still in question. Wide receiver A pretty easily for me. Been arguably the best group on the team, and you've just had multiple guys step up at different points this year. They're explosive. They're reliable hands. Haven't had an issue, a real issue with drops. They're blocking the best we've seen from a blocking standpoint in a long time with this group. Just everything you could ask for in a wide receiver room. They're deep. You have a lot of multiple options, diversity in body types, length, speed, size. It's just a really good group, man. I give it an A right now.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. I would give them, honestly, I'd probably give them an A+ right now. I know the Georgia game, but I'm going to give them the A+. And my reasoning for it is the week-to-week production with sustaining all the injuries that they have had so far this season. Tyler Brown's been out at times. Brian Wesco's been out at times. Troy Stelato's been out at times. Adam Randall's been out at times. Antonio Williams has been banged up at times. Like literally almost everybody in the wide receiver room has been banged up from time to time this season. And the production has been top notch every single week, obviously outside of the Georgia game. So I'm going to roll with an A+ for the wide receiver group. Rolling right along into the tight end group. I think the tight ends have been great this season. Jake Brenningstool's been a big part of the offense. His pass catching has been pretty elite. I think I think it's 2 balls at this point that he's caught on his hip and then turned them into touchdowns, which is like it's the craziest catch to watch him do. But it's happened on 2 separate occasions. It kind of makes you tense up for a minute, and then you notice that he catches it and turns it into a big play. Also, the blocking, the physicality that the tight ends are playing with this year, I think is unmatched. They're blocking downfield. They're really performing well there. So I'm going to give the tight end group a B+.
All right, I am a little bit higher. I'm going to go A-. They've been, but we're kind of in the same range. I think Jake Brenningstool has been obviously one of your best weapons this season. The blocking has certainly been there from guys like Olsen Pat Henry, who's really stepped up, and even Josh Sapp. He hasn't been as involved much in the passing game, But when he's out there, he is blocking. I think this is a really good group that you have right now. And you have pretty good consistency week to week. Yeah, A minus for me. Only thing I'll say is, Jake, he's had a couple of drops at times that you're just kind of like, okay, you gotta make that play. But other than that, and they've been really, really good. So yeah, A minus on, borderline A, close to A for me. But I'm gonna say A minus because some of the drops.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see A minus. I almost went there, but I dropped it down to a B plus. All right, next QB room. More specifically, we're just talking about one player at this point. Quarterback Cade Klubnik. What's your grade for him so far? 7 games through the season, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Another theme. I'm going with an A. Just especially within the context of where we thought he needed to be this season and where he is. He's greatly exceeded expectations. He's playing really high level football right now, taking care of the football, hitting big plays. He's not, and even when he misses them, he just keeps plugging along, and he has a very short memory, and that's a really good. And it hasn't, whenever he's had a slow start or the rare 3 times he's thrown an interception, and it has not affected him. And so he's operating this offense at a really high level. Got to go with an A. Just been really pleased with him. We've already talked about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with A for Cade Klubnik. I think he's been absolutely spectacular this season. The biggest things I think that stand out for me is Cade's how he maneuvers in the pocket and his decision making this year. He is really taking care of the football. He's using his feet when he needs to. And the other big thing I think that you hit on is that short memory that he has. When he makes a bad play, it looks like it doesn't faze him at all. He's right back in it. He's ready to go the next. If it's a turnover, he's ready to go the next drive. If he misses a throw, he's right back in it. Hey, next play, getting the signals in. You can tell he is leading that offense at it very confidently. You can just see the way that he operates on the field, the way that the players around him are responding to him. You can tell that he's got full command of that offense and really the team overall. He's garnered a lot of respect there, and his improvement is absolutely insane. So definitely an A there. All right, moving on to offensive line. This is another group, man. Much like Cade Klubnik, if you would have asked us back in fall camp that 7 games through the season, this offensive line would have only given up 6 sacks. After last season, I would have told you, just like you said before, you're probably on something. I don't know what you're thinking, but it sounds amazing. I'm glad you're living a happy life. But this offensive line and what Matt Luke has been able to do with these guys, how they've been transformed. I mean, these dudes are nasty out there. They're finishing blocks. They're pushing piles. They're just operating at a very high level. You can tell it's rubbing off on Cade with the confidence that he has in these guys. Like I said, only giving up 6 sacks so far this season, opening up massive holes for Phil Moffitt to run through. I got to give the offensive line an A plus, man. I got to do it. I know they have work to do. I know they're not perfect, but from where they've come from and the progress they made, I got to go A plus for the offensive line.
I'm right with you. A plus. I think, especially when you consider where they've come from. Last season, just very, very inconsistent, very unreliable at times. Obviously, injuries have played a part in that, but just all of the guys that you brought back, they are playing like the best football of their career. Tristan Lay has stepped in as your true left tackle. We were worried. We were like, okay, this is kind of his. It seems like it's going to be his show this year. Is he really going to step into that role? Ryan Linthicum has exceeded all of my expectations at center. And we had some, even more questions about him because of how little football he's played. this group is playing really, really well, confident, physical. They play to the whistle and beyond sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, they're out there getting a little,
They
almost
toe
like
the line a little bit.
yeah, they're downfield blocking. They're getting a little bit extra.
That's why Virginia was getting mad at times this past week. So they have taken on the personality of their position coach, and I think that I wanted to see that, but I didn't expect it to parlay into the results that we've seen so far. You mentioned that you've given up 6 sacks on the year, and really, you could probably charge like half of them to like coverage sacks. I know that the two Georgia got were definitely coverage sacks. Cade holding the ball too long. They just have played at a really high level, very, very little lapses. Run blocking, this team is one of the best in the country, one of the best rushing offenses in the country. Just week to week, just putting it on. And they've been the driving force behind just the balance that this offense has been able to have. And even against, and I think even against Georgia, I thought they held up extremely well, especially in pass protection. So offensive line A+. And they, again, like you said, they're not perfect, but they are miles beyond what I thought to expect from this group, in year one under Matt Luke. And it kind of shows you, if anything, it's like, man, why didn't we hire a guy like him sooner? Why have we, like, Clemson? We've always had this ability. Like, there's nothing about Clemson in particular that made it that we shouldn't be able to have good offensive lines. Like, there's really no excuse, especially this far into, from a Dabo Sweeney standpoint, this far into your tenure. Like, you've won 2 national championships. Like, you could go get anybody you want to coach your offensive line, and you are in a geographical footprint to get really talented offensive linemen.
And that's the thing, is like, Clemson's recruited well at offensive line. There's blue chips. Like, I think when we talked about it, because we've talked about this a lot on this channel. When we talked about it, I don't know if people really believe like all the blue chip talent that was stacked up in there, and it wasn't translating to the field. And as uncomfortable as it might be to say, but that's an indictment on the coaching.
Yeah.
Because you get a guy in here like Matt Luke, a guy that has a pedigree of producing high-level offensive linemen, first-round offensive linemen, NFL caliber guys, and suddenly he's with them for, what's Matt Luke been there for now? What did he get there in February? January?
Yeah.
January. So he's been there 10 months, and look at him. They're not even recognizable.
With basically the same guys.
Literally the same guys. Literally the same guys.
It's not like we went out, as Jay says, it's not like Clemson went out and got a bunch of transfers, and they tried to.
Yeah, the personnel is the same. Yeah, they tried to get a few, but the personnel is the same. The only guy we lost was Will Putnam. And then, Ryan Lithicum slides in, has done a great job. But you're right. They've taken on the personality of their coach, and it shows that Clemson could have always been doing it. We've talked about this so many times, Jordan, about how it's never made sense for us as fans, as closely as we watch Clemson, for us to not have elite offensive line play. With the way that Clemson's built through the trenches. That's how Dabo Sweeney's always built the team. And it just never made sense why our offensive line never quite got to that level. But now we have an elite coach. Hopefully we have him for an extended amount of time, because he is doing a heck of a job with the talent that he has on that offensive line, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just excited to see them continue to grow. And the cool thing is from what I've been from what they've said, they only expect to lose Marcus because
Marcus Tate. It's the
like
only guy that is officially out of eligibility after
right.
this season. Everybody else, whether they come back or not, everybody else has the ability to come back next season.
Yeah.
Outside of Marcus Tate.
Even Walker Parks, who's
Even
been
Walker
here forever.
Parks, which when that was brought up a couple weeks ago, I was like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah,
I
I
thought
had
before
always
he
been
was
under the
gone.
impression
Like,
he was gone.
I had no idea he had another year of eligibility, but apparently he does. So I guess because of all the season-ending injuries and stuff that he's had, maybe that's why. But I had no idea that Walker Parks had another year of eligibility, and I welcome him coming back. I hope he does.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're in agreement. All offensive line A+.
Yeah,
for sure.
A++ on the offensive line. Shout out Matt Luke. Thank you so much for coming to Clemson. Please stay a while.
Yes, please. Please.
All right, moving right along.
Man.
Yeah, last position group for the offense, running back. You got Phil Maffa obviously taking the bulk of the snaps. Jay Haynes, Keith Adams Jr. Working in there as well. What's your grade so far for our running back group?
Yeah, I don't have too many complaints from this group. Running back is always kind of it's really hard to have bad running back play. I'll say that, especially when your offensive line is blocking the way they have. But Phil Maffa has been great. He's stepped into as the bell cow running back, really really well. And I've seen enough from the backups. Jay Haynes, Keith Adams, Jr. in particular. I think you're in pretty good shape. I'm gonna go A- to an A. They're honestly, I think Phil Maffa has stepped up a really good deal in pass protection. He's had a couple of moments here or there, but I think he's grown a lot in that aspect over his time. And that's credit to CJ Spiller as his position coach. I feel like he's kind of taken on that role a little bit more. But Phil, he's been patient. He's been patient. He's been powerful, and just a load for teams to have to deal with. And he's even had a couple of times where he's caught the ball out of the backfield. Now, obviously, he's not the threat that Will Shipley was, and nobody expected him to be. I don't have too many complaints about the running back room. They've been pretty strong, and Phil Maffa certainly being the overwhelming force in that group.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Dude, it's so fun to watch Phil Maffa just body these safeties and these defensive backs when they try to tackle him. It's becoming one of my favorite things to do on Saturdays is just try to decide which guy on the defense is going to get run over by Phil Maffa that day. So that's been a lot of fun for me on Saturdays. I agree with you. I'm going to go A- for the running back room. I think we're in great hands. Love Phil Maffa. Obviously, the bell cow. He's well over 600 yards on the season. I think he's got 6 touchdowns or something like that. I don't know. 6 touchdowns.
Running about 7 yards per clip.
Yeah, I mean, just really, really, really good. He is an unstoppable force when he gets going. I think lots of defensive backs have figured that out this season. Just how tough he is, and linebackers for that matter, have figured out just how tough he is to get on the ground once he gets rolling. He is not a go down on contact guy at all. And I think behind him, to your point, you've seen what Jay Haynes has done in spurts this season. Watching Keith Adams just bully the Wake Forest defense after Phil Maffa was done for the day was one of my favorite things to watch as well. Because I think they thought that, number 7's finally on the sideline. We can take a breather. And then, here comes number 19, just, looking like a fresher version of number 7 on the field, still cracking heads. So I think that running back room is in good shape long-term, even after we obviously lose Phil Maffa this season. But long term, I think we're in good shape as well. So I'm with you so far this season. I'm going to go A minus. All right, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball, starting with the defensive tackle room. This might be the single best position group on this defense. These dudes roll in and out, play after play. I mean, you can name guys and keep naming guys, and you won't do the defensive tackle room justice. Capehart, Peyton Page, Trey Williams. The list just goes on and on of these guys that they just roll in there. They all look like they said got the same body type, massive individuals, and they wreak havoc on the interior of those offensive lines. And they've really been setting the tone as far as the running game. Like Clemson has shut down running game after running game week in and week out. And a big portion of that is this defensive tackle group and the penetration that they get in the interior of those offensive lines. So I'm gonna go an A for the defensive tackle group so far this season. I think they've played exactly how we expected them to play so far this season. They've definitely lived up to the billing, and they're definitely the anchor, I feel, of that defense. That they're that consistent piece that you know what you're going to get play in and play out. Those are those guys that are rolling out there that you can really count on.
Yeah, I'm with you. A for me, they've been the most consistent part. They've shown in week to week. I won't, and the only thing that's keeping me from A plus, like they are not like, you don't have like super dominant pass rushers and they
Right.
were, but again, they're not always, as defensive tackles, you're not really asked to do that a lot. But you've had some guys in the past that were a little bit more a little bit more suited in that role. Ruka Roro and Brian Bersee in the past were really good pass rushers as defensive tackles. But
Dexter
I think
was a guy that was good at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like it, but I think this group is solid. They are really, really tough to move, really, really massive. They use their size well. And they don't get blown off the ball very much for obvious reasons. So yeah, they're the anchor of this defense. So I'm gonna go A. They've been the best part of your team so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely best part of the defense. All right, moving right along to the defensive edge position. Obviously, Peter Woods has been injured some this season, so we haven't seen him on the field quite as much as we thought we would. But when on the field, I think he's performed pretty well. Obviously, opposite TJ Parker, you've seen a lot of guys have to step up due to the depth situations that we brought up this season coming into the season. That's definitely reared its head at times this season, but you've seen guys step up like AJ Hoffler, Cade Denoff has played quality snaps. Jaheim Lawson has been a guy that has really started to step up as the season's going on. So what's your thoughts on the defensive end position and how they've performed through 7 games this season?
Yeah, I think they've been fine mostly. I'm gonna go B minus. I think obviously Peter Woods has, when he's healthy, is phenomenal. I think TJ has really stepped his game up of the past few weeks, but you just haven't had you certainly haven't had the depth, and you certainly have not gotten the pass rush that you've had in years past. And I think they're starting to figure some things out there, but early in the season you weren't getting a lot of pressure, and certainly you got burned a couple of times in the run game too, as far as setting the edge.
Absolutely.
Obviously, it happened a lot against Georgia, and Stanford burned you a good bit. But they've settled in. They've had they've kind of figured out their pecking order and their depth chart there. And getting Peter Woods back was, and healthy certainly was a massive boost for this group. But I think that they've been fine. But I think there's a lot of room for them to grow. So that's the good thing as you get more of those young guys in. We talked about how Jaheim Lawson is starting to step his game up. AJ Hoffler, I've been banging the drum for him, but he clearly still has some growth to do. So. Continuing to get him in the game, I think, is going to be massive, because certainly you're going to need him down the road. But yeah, they've been fine. I'm gonna go B minus, but they have a lot of room to grow.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. B minus. Definitely some work to do in that room. Jaheim Lawson has been kind of like that bright spot as far as the young guy stepping up. I think so far this season really developed into quite a guy over there. But getting Peter Woods back, I think has obviously you've seen the effect of Peter Woods since coming back off of that injury where he got that ridiculous cut block that could have been much worse. Thankfully, it only took a couple games from him. It could have took a lot more. It could have took a season from Peter Woods. So thankfully, it didn't take more. And his presence has been felt since he's been back. It's definitely been a better edge group with him in there. And it's crazy, man. Like, you see that guy on the field, he looks like a D tackle through and through, but somehow he's still athletic and quick enough to play that edge position. And that is amazing because he is a load, man. That is a big dude.
You see him in a 2-point stance and doing swim moves and
Yeah,
all I'm like, what in the world? Like, they got him standing up on the edge. I'm like, at 300.
Yeah, big number 11 just standing up on the edge. I'm like, what in the world, dude? It don't look right.
Like, as a tackle, like lining up, getting in your stance and seeing that, like, what do you do?
I don't know, because he's quick, and then he could just bull rush right through you and just take you to the quarterback as well.
Yeah,
which most defensive ends can't. Right? They tend to use their speed and their athleticism in the pass rushing, but Peter Woods has got both of it. And man, love to see that guy out there playing. He's so much fun to watch. Glad he's back in the rotation, and that's definitely been a shot in the arm for this defense since he's been back. But let's move right along. Linebacker position. I'm going to be honest, Jordan. I've been a little underwhelmed with our linebackers so far this season. We thought coming into this season they could be one of the better linebacker groups in the country, and although they've played like that at times, they're just been wildly inconsistent so far this season for me, and a bit underwhelming. Some of the missed tackles, some of the missed assignments, just the inconsistent play. I mean, there's plays where you see Barrett Carter and Wade Woodaz, and they flash, and you're like, yes, there it is. That's what we're talking about. And then other times it'll leave you scratching your head like, what is going on? Like, these are veteran guys. They know this defense in and out. Like, these mistakes should not be happening. So for that, I'm going to go for a C on the linebackers. So I'm going to be a little harsh with them, but I think that's the grade they've earned so far this season. Now, they have the ability to be an A in the group. But they just gotta build consistency, and they've done it at times, but it just hasn't been quite as consistent as I wanted to be. So I'm gonna go C. I'll go C plus.
Okay. I was going to go. I was going to be a little bit more positive than you, but it was going to be C plus.
Yeah.
But for all the reasons you mentioned, just the consistency hasn't always been there. There's been a lack of intensity at times, late, kind of, arm tackling at times and being slow, filling gaps. Like, it hasn't been, week to week, like, you're not really sure what you're going to get. And, that's disappointing really from two guys that have, been in the program and been in this defense a long time. So, but I'm going to go C plus because I think, really mainly that plus is for Sammy Brown, because when he's been out there, he's been a lot of fun.
He is fun to watch, man. That dude's a weapon, man.
And you also and I can't, and they're also getting dinged because of there's not a lot of depth there, and the fact that Barrett and Wade are playing this many snaps, they don't feel confident in these guys really. So
there's pretty much no depth.
Yeah,
at the linebacker position. But you've obviously had the season-ending injury and all that at that position group too.
Yeah.
So that went into some of the depth being limited.
Yeah, Kobe was that next guy up.
So. Yeah, Kobe was gonna get a lot of playing time this year, and unfortunately, he tears his ACL and you're going for the season. So, but yeah. I think we're in agreement there. C plus for the linebacker group. I was at a C, but I changed my mind. I bumped it up to a C plus. But moving right along, cornerback group. What's your thoughts on how they've played to this point in the season?
Yeah, I think they've kind of. I think they've played better than maybe some of the at some points they may have looked. I think they've gotten sold a little bit at times by not just a combination of the defensive line not always getting pressure and also sometimes your safety help not being there. Um, I think they've actually been pretty solid, especially considering you don't have you're trying to replace a first round corner. And you've had some young guys step up, and you've had a couple of guys injured. I'm going to go B plus. I think they've actually been pretty good. Avion Terrell has obviously been really good. I think Jaden Lucas has been a lot better than some of the fan base seems to think. I think he's actually been
a lot
really
better
good.
as of late. He had a rough patch there. I get some of the criticism, but I think.
And I also think at times, some of the plays that that have been had on Jaden haven't been like just busts.
Yeah.
The Florida State game was not good for him. He did not play well. But I think other times he's been in position and guys just made plays. He's kind of been unlucky in that aspect. So like I think your two starters have been pretty good, and Avion Terrell and Jaden Lucas. And Ashton Hampton has gotten in and flashed a good bit. He hasn't been perfect. I think Shelton Lewis feels like a step slow to me. I don't think he's completely healthy, but he's given he's given a lot. And I think he's this past week I thought he settled in a little bit more. I'm watching him and he doesn't seem as fluid as he was last year, and I think it's partly from the injury that he was dealing with, heading into the season. That's just my conspiracy theory. I don't have any like insider knowledge about that, but he does not look like 100% to me. So it's hard to ding this cornerback room too much because you have a lot of young pieces that I think are really talented, and I think your starters are actually playing pretty well. So B plus for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll go B plus for the cornerback group. I think there's been some bright spots. Obviously, you talked about Jaden Lucas and some of his plays, and although I think he had that rough patch there, as of late, I think he's rebounded really nicely and started to play well. So there's a reason they keep running him out there, and it's not because they just like Jaden Lucas better. So moving on, the safety group, R.J. Mickens has been – I think we talked about this in the last post game about just how good R.J. Mickens has been so far this season. He really is kind of that glue back there. He's that guy just operating at a very high level, much like I talked about the defensive tackles. He's that guy that what you're going to get play in and play out, game in and game out. I think he's played really, really well. So I'll give the safeties a B plus as well.
Okay, I think this is the one we're going to have the most differing opinion.
Okay.
I'm going B minus to C plus to B minus, and I think if you didn't have R.J. Mickens playing so well, this would be the grade would be a little bit worse.
Yeah.
I just have not been really pleased with. I'm including nickel. I'm going to include nickel in here for this discussion.
Yeah. I got you.
I am not. Have not. It's been really inconsistent from the guys outside of that. I think you have some talent there.
Yeah.
But Kylan Griffin has played at times. He started early in the year and he did not play well.
That nickel position has kind of been a struggle for Clemson.
Yeah.
They rotated a few guys in and out, and
it has not been.
Nobody's really looking good.
No, Khalil Barnes he's definitely not been as effective this year, and that they moved him to safety, and then you had Sherrod Coble step in, and I think I think he's got to grow into that role a little bit because he's more of a downhill player. Kind of for some of the similar reasons that Andrew Makuba had struggles when he was here at that position. And Tyler Venables has gotten in at times. He is not. I don't think he's. I think he's a step slower than he used to be. I just there hasn't been a lot exciting about this group. I think Ricardo Jones has flashed when he's gotten out there. I'm really excited about him. But I don't know. You just have not. There has not been a whole lot of depth. The cream hasn't really risen to the top yet in that group outside of RJ Mickens.
Sherrod Cole was kind of a guy that he was looking really good last year, and then obviously that big injury and hasn't really looked the same since. Part of that can be just working back after injury. Some of that's a mental game. But I still believe in Sherrod Cole. I think he's a really good player. Struggled at times this season, but I think he's going to be really good. I'm still a big
me too. I think he's going to grow into this role. So I'm not down on Sherrod Cole, but he was not the guy initially, and so they had to move him. They didn't have to move him, but he had to step up and take more snaps. When they moved Khalil Barnes, and so I think the safeties like for me, I think the safeties and the linebackers probably I would say have the most to improve on, but they are they both very easily could reach that benchmark. If the necessary progression is taken. So I want to preface that I'm not down on the safeties as far as the outlook.
No.
You just have not gotten consistency outside of your arguably one of the best players on your defense. So I want to see more from them. And I think Khalil Barnes, once he settles in, I think he'll be fine. He's a really talented football player. He's going to figure it out.
He seems to be kind of having that sophomore slump, if you will. He had such a dynamic breakout season last year. Really, stormed onto the scene, played great, had an amazing freshman campaign, and this year, he's obviously going through some growing pains. And it's very evident. But again, a really good player. You expect that he'll rebound at some point in time and start looking a little bit closer to what he could be. Koval, already mentioned him, same thing. I probably gave a little bit too much love to RJ Mickens in the grade, but I'll stick with it. RJ
Mickens is really good. I don't blame you, man. I love RJ Mickens.
Good, man.
I like we are an RJ Mickens fan support group. Support group sounds negative. Fan club, whatever you want to call
it. I'm leading the RJ Mickens fan club, president of the fan club. Love watching that dude play, man. He just flies all over the field, puts his body on the line. He's all over the place.
Yeah, he's one of your leaders, man. He's been here a long time. He's that old. He's like the salty dog.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. All right, special teams, Jordan. What's your grade?
Special teams, I'm going with C. It's been fine. It's man. It hasn't been. Nolan Hooser has been really consistent. You haven't really asked him to do much, so I can't really give him a significantly high grade. He's made the layups, which is more than we could say last year. And so but you haven't really asked him to hit any long field goals. Until we see that, I can't give him a much higher grade. Punter, I've been pretty disappointed with, but it hasn't lost you any football games. And the return game has just been, it's been whatever.
Non-existent, almost.
And then your coverage units, you haven't given up any really big returns. So passing, good grade on that. And you've had a lot of touchbacks this year because Robert Gunn is basically booting it out of the end zone every time, so that's good. That's been the philosophy around here a long time. When you have a kicker that can get it out of the end zone, just kick it out of the end zone. No reason to give the other team an opportunity to get plus field position or anything like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up this segment. Quick overall grade for offense and defense. What do you got?
Offense has got to be an A, especially if you average the grades out. Yeah,
for sure.
It's an A. Been really, really good. Can't give them an A plus because of the Georgia game, but I can't say that it's a completely different offense than the one that played against Georgia, because that seems like a little bit of a cop out. But you certainly you did not put out your best players and the best personnel.
Yeah, I mean, look,
and call your best, stuff in that game.
Right.
It doesn't seem
right. Look, the Georgia game is what it is. Not excusing it. It was absolutely a terrible game. But this offense has always also gone out, 4 or 5 other times now and put up over 500 yards of offense. And yes, we can talk about who they're playing and all that stuff matters. I understand. But it's still 500 yards of total offense. So much improved. I'm with you. A on the offense. What you got for defense?
Defense, going with a B minus. Like they've gotten the job done, every week, but they've certainly left a lot out there, and there's a lot that they could improve on. Your offense has been so good, your defense has not been asked to really win you a football game, and that's really good. But B minus, because they've had their moments of dominance and brilliance, and they getting stops, and they've done a really great job at forcing turnovers. That's one thing we didn't really talk about. This team has been really good about creating turnovers this year. And when you're a team that isn't always going to get 3 and outs, that's really good. So B minus. Like this defense week to week, I think there is a baseline level of performance, but the consistency of getting them from being capable to great to elite, it's that those lines are being crossed back and forth week to week. Like sometimes they're at and sometimes quarter to quarter when they want to play their best football. So B minus for me. They've been fine, but I think there's a lot of room to grow there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Defense could be a lot better. I agree with the B minus. I think that's a fair grade for them overall. Definitely some areas of improvement. I think we outlined those already. Certainly some stuff to focus on for them in the bye week, as is the offense. You got to keep improving. This is a good time for Clemson to take a step back, self-scout, try to find some tendencies on both sides of the ball, try to mix those things up and get better for that home stretch, right? We still got 5 games left in the regular season, but we're 5-0 in the conference, in conference play. We've definitely set ourselves up to be exactly where we need to be at this point in time in the season. Now it's on to November. It's time to really show what you got. So